In this lesson, I'm going to tell you about some of the things that inspire me and influence me. One of the biggest influences in my life are books. I've read since I was a little child, and I've always loved reading. I read a range of things from Shakespeare, Philip Pullman, Maya Angelou. I also really love things like popular science books, authors like Jared Diamond or Yuval Noah Harari. Some of the books that have really followed me through my life has been books like Shakespeare. I love Shakespeare for the richness of his language. And one of my favorite facts about him is the fact that he actually invented over 50,000 words in the English language. Another one of my favorite authors is Maya Angelou. I love the beauty of her language and how she can create worlds and environments with just a few phrases and a few choice words. Reading is one of the best ways to really learn and understand how storytelling works. It's also one of the best ways to build up your vocabulary. And if you're learning a new language or you're trying to do public speaking in a language that's not your first language, read as much as possible, because that is the way you're really going to start mastering that language. In fact, English isn't my first language. I'm originally Russian, and I learned English when I was very young, and we lived in Canada. When we returned to Russia, or what was then the Soviet Union, my parents were determined to keep up my English, and they did it through encouraging me to read English books, but also watching videos. And one of the things we had was the full box set of Fawlty Towers. I watched all 12 episodes on repeat hundreds of times. I knew it inside out. And I was so excited when my parents actually bought me this book, which has the complete screenplay for every episode.
I beg your pardon? I understand you're in the spoon trade.
Oh, well, yes.
Yes. Fascinating, fascinating. How absorbing for you.
Yes, well, as much
so much more interesting than being a hotel inspector.
What?
You can actually see marks in the book where I marked up certain scenes. These were scenes that I staged at my school in Russia. And I used them to help and encourage other students to speak English. And Fawlty Tower really helped me discover how humor can be used to help people learn. A few years ago, I discovered the work of Chip and Dan Heath. You can see it's a well-worn book, and that's because I use it so much. It's one of the best books I've read about communication and explaining what makes effective communication in a really clear and succinct way. But it's also really full of a lot of fun case studies and stories that really illustrate their point. I encourage you to check out their books, Made to Stick, or some of their other books like Switch. Another huge influence in my life and my work has been working in theatre and education. I was really lucky to work with a company called Interacting Theatre Company, which was based out of Spain. They used theatre and interactive theatre to help kids learn English. The premise is they used comedy to relax an audience, and then you get the kids involved on stage. And because they're laughing and relaxed, they overcome that barrier of speech when you're learning a new language. I got to work with kids from the age of 3 up until 18. I worked with teachers, showing them how to use different theatre techniques in the classroom to teach all sorts of subjects. And I got to travel around some really remote places in Spain as well as around the world. What I really learned through interactive theatre is how much humour and laughter relaxes people and then really facilitates learning and unlocks real creativity. So I always bring in an element of fun and whimsy into all my workshops. The biggest inspiration in my life have been my children. I have 2 children, they're 8 and 5. And watching them grow up and seeing how they discover the world and how curious they are and how free they are have actually inspired some of the exercises that I'll teach you later on in the course. Those are some of my biggest influences, and I'd love to hear about yours. In this course, I'm going to help you find your voice. We're going to learn about the physical side of how the voice is formed in your body, and therefore you'll learn how to control it better. We'll learn about body language and its importance in communication, but you'll also learn how to be much more in tune with your body, which helps you be a much better public speaker, but also helps you manage your nerves. We'll learn how to construct an effective persuasive narrative, and we'll get a chance to practice it in our final project. So in this next lesson, we're going to kick off by understanding what makes a great public speaker.